Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. And remember, our summer sale is happening now at chgolocker.com. 25% off everything in store. Stock up on some dope merch for the remainder of the summer. They're good all year long. You got it. You got the CHGO Bears shirt. The fall sports, winter sports are starting to come back. Bulls, Hawks will be here before you know it. Plenty of time in the baseball season. And as I said yesterday, these make a great gift for the sports fan in your life. Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you know a Chicago sports fan of some team. Go to CHGO Locker, stock up on some shirts, 25% off in the locker. Now you can see right now I've got my brand new Skyline shirt on.
Nice.
And I took advantage of the sale myself yesterday and got the big Chicago flag CHGO shirt, so I'm stocked up.
Nice.
Yeah, ready to go.
Yeah, treat yourself.
You have got, as I told our wonderful producer Sarah earlier, it's not buying T-shirts, you're buying work uniforms.
Right.
So maybe you can get a tax write-off.
Tax write-off,
Yeah,
exactly.
work uniforms.
Exactly. I'm Jay Zawaski. That's Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. Thanks for joining us. Hit us up in the chat. We've got a lot to get to today. We've got our NHL 23 cover athletes plural.
Yeah.
We've got Corey Pronman's organizational prospect rankings. A bunch of new names for the Hawks who made a big jump.
An improvement, yeah.
A little bit of breaking news when it comes to the World Cup of Hockey. Looks like it'll be played in 2024.
It's coming together.
What else am I missing? Anything else we got to get to?
If you watched the Cubs game last night,
Pat Foley?
you had a treat with Pat Foley in the booth.
I wish somebody would have told me. I missed it. I wish somebody would have told me.
Yeah.
They should have
They
publicized
only
that at
promoted
all.
that
Yeah.
at all. Yeah.
And a little programming note, Thursday's show, tomorrow's show, 1:30 p.m., we're going to talk to AJ Hafley from DNVR to start our division previews. We're going to talk Avalanche. And then on Monday, 1:30 p.m., right here in our West Loop studios, Chicago Wolves head coach Brock Sheehan will be in studio with us. He formerly of the Chicago Steel.
First returning in-studio guest.
Yeah, friend of the program.
Yes.
So
he appeared on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast and then got a promotion. I don't think those are linked.
You're
events
welcome,
right
Brock.
there. Yes.
Everyone who has come on this program has kept their job or improved their job. So,
right.
hey.
Right.
Let's
Nobody has ever been fired
keep
after
that going.
coming on CHGO.
Let's keep that going.
Well, we've got time.
So, Brock, if you would like to thank us for helping you get your promotion,
Yeah.
you can bring some pizza with you, maybe?
Yeah.
Or,
Why not?
Our buddy Chris Cook will be escorting. For those that don't know, Chris Cook, a longtime Blackhawks writer, took over Lindsay Wilhite's job with the Wolves. He's now, I don't know what the exact title is, but basically director of PR.
of communications and PR and all that stuff.
So he'll be here off camera, but it'll be good to see Chris again, too. So it's going to be a fun Monday. So a bunch of cool stuff coming up before the season begins. But why don't we start with the World Cup news a little bit?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. Looks like the World Cup is going to return in 2024. Mario, I know you have a bunch of the details, so...
Yeah, so the NHL and NHLPA are doing a media tour, not the media tour. I think there's going to be 2 of them, but they're doing a media tour right now in Paris, France, which makes a ton of sense. So
where was our invite?
Hockey
NHL.
right? Yeah, we gotta make sure we're on that email chain.
Yeah, we're on the wrong email list.
We're on the do not email list. Yeah, so Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley was talking about the plans for the World Cup of Hockey. I know a lot of people have wanted to see that come back after the success that it was in 2016, after it came back after a second time. But with the league not having NHL players go to the Olympics in 2018 and 2022, I think a lot of us have clamored for a top-tier international tournament for NHL players and men's professional players outside of the World Championships, which half of the greatest players in the world don't play in because they're in the NHL playoffs. But it looks like February of 2024 is the target for the World Cup of Hockey to come back. It appears they are in discussions and negotiations to chalk out 17 days in February, basically having an Olympic break in 2024 to play the World Cup of Hockey. Interesting, though, they're looking at least 8 teams, possibly 10. There will be, from what I understand, no teams like in 2016 where it was Team Europe, where there's a conglomerate of European players not in the major nations. There will also likely not be a Team North America, which was one of the reasons the World Cup of Hockey in 2016 was such a success. Was you had the greatest U23 North American players together on one team. Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews were on the same team. Nathan McKinnon was on the same team as all those guys. So it was quite the
take away the most
mixture.
Fun aspect of the tournament. Typical
Exactly.
NHL.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they're looking at least 8 teams, possibly 10, and games will be played in both North America and Europe, which is an interesting little facet to the tournament there. So, yeah, it looks like those are the preliminary outlines for getting the World Cup of Hockey back into the fold. I mentioned the information in our group chat prior to the show today, and I said, "Wow, count me in!" And then Greg's immediate response was, "F this." So, two opinions on the World Cup.
All right, let me clarify my stance here. I'm all for the World Cup of Hockey. I'm all for them telling the Olympics to piss off. We don't need you. Let's do it in our arenas, on our television networks. Let's make our money. Mm-hmm. What I do think is insanely stupid is doing this in the middle of the damn season. You're going to shut your season down for 3 weeks to play a tournament that, let's face it, most people don't give a shit about. It's dumb. Play this in September like you did the last time, right before training camp starts. Get people excited about hockey right before the season starts. I know people are going to say, well, then players might get hurt. Okay, would you rather have your star player get hurt in the World Cup of Hockey 3 weeks before the regular season starts, or 3 weeks before the damn Stanley Cup playoffs start?
Exactly.
It's stupid to do it in February, to shut down your entire league for 3 weeks to go play a tournament that is a money grab. And I'm all for a money grab tournament in September, in August, before the season starts. I'd much rather watch World Cup of Hockey games than preseason NHL games. I think everybody on the planet would too.
What's great about that too is when you have a preseason tournament that the players care about, and they do. See, this is always kind of the thing with these international tournaments, and I think, what is the baseball one called?
The World Baseball Classic.
Yeah. It was kind of hard to motivate, and with pitchers and everything, it's a little more complicated. So the buy-in wasn't always there. With hockey players, when it was the Canada Cup and then the World Cup, like the 96 World Cup is one of my fondest hockey memories. But you've got the best players playing in a competitive tournament that they all are invested in early. And then when the season begins, they're really in game shape already, right? And the season almost starts better because you don't have that ramp up week or two while conditioning comes back and guys kind of find their legs again.
Your best 60 players are in mid-season form at the drop of the puck. And then what do? You shut down the league for 3 weeks so all the players that aren't playing in it sit around on their ass for 3 weeks. That might help some teams get some players healthy, but then you come back and then you get fatigue and rust as you're entering the last 6 weeks of the season. Your playoff pushes, it just makes no sense to do it in February. So leave it to the NHL to take a really good idea and turn it into something awful.
I think from a player's perspective, having to ramp up and be in mid-season form right away when you're just trying to kind of get into training camp in the preseason is a difficult thing to do. And I also, when you have that kind of tournament on that kind of stage, you want to have the best players playing in it at their peak level of play, not I quick ramped up to be ready to go for this in September. I fully understand what you guys are saying about, stopping the season and getting people excited about a tournament like this going into the NHL season makes a ton of sense. I think if from a player's perspective, having a tournament like this that guys are going to care about at least a little bit, and having them be able to play when they're already going at 100%, I think is good for them physically. I think when you talk about there's going to be players that aren't going to be playing in this and they just don't play any hockey. I think for some of those guys, it's probably going to be a welcome break. It's just like, oh, okay, like, I'm grinding, I'm physically drained. We're getting into the playoff push, and now I get 2 weeks off to kind of rest my body. Like that's probably great for those players to kind of get that rest. Obviously, some of them probably wish that they could just keep going, to keep in that shape.
They're also not just gonna. Those guys that are not in a tournament are just gonna be. I'm going home for 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to be in the gym. They're going to be on the ice. They're going to be
stuff. Yeah.
There's going to be stuff going on.
Well, and I think too, what bringing this tournament back and having it being played during the season in February, what it tells me is that the NHL and the NHLPA, like you said, Greg, they're basically sticking it to the IIHF and the IOC and saying, look, if we're not going to come to an agreement on being able to have these guys play in the Olympics, then we're just going to make our own tournament, and you guys can have all the amateur players and the non-NHL contract players you want, and those can be the Olympic Games, and we're going to have our own international tournament on our own terms, make our own money, and do all that. So I like having whenever it was an Olympic year, previously during NHL seasons, especially in 2010 and 2014. I never minded the Olympic break stopping the season because you knew, okay, now we get this international all-star tournament basically, and it was fantastic hockey to watch. So to have that come back, I'm completely fine with. Just having it come back whenever, I'm completely fine with. Same. If it stops the season, you deal with it. If it's before the season, that's fine too.
I mean, it made sense to do the Olympic stoppages when the Olympics were on, or when the NHL was on NBC. Yeah. And NBC had the Olympic coverage, and it was like, this is a perfect way to say, hey, if you're really enjoying the Olympic hockey we're showing you at 2 a.m, like you could watch every
you
Sunday
run the
afternoon
NHL commercials
and see these same players play, throughout the rest of the season. That made sense to me. I've always been one of the guys that advocated that if you want to do ice hockey as an Olympic sport, do it in the Summer Olympics instead of the Winter Olympics. Who cares? Like,
hockey's not a summer sport, though.
Yeah, it is for these guys.
The bubble playoffs was so weird. It was great to watch competitive hockey in August. Having the World Juniors just 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, whatever it was great to watch that. But it's also like the thirst from a fan perspective for hockey is not the greatest in the summer.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because...
And also, these guys aren't conditioned.
The World Cup, or the, World Junior Championships had
no... paid millions of dollars. I want to hear about it.
There was no buzz about the World Junior Championships, and I know it's different because they're not, like, proven names. They're not household names yet, but you had, the biggest prospect to come along since Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard playing in it, and it was... Yeah. It barely was a blip on the radar for people. So,
well, let's be honest. Outside of hardcore hockey fans, it's barely a blip on the radar when it's in December too.
That's right. But that's part of the challenge that the NHL and the world of hockey needs to kind of figure out is like every other sport can ramp up excitement for their amateur game. Why can't there's the G League NBA that's on all the time. Like they're college football. Why can't seeing the greatest hockey prospects compete in the World Juniors, how can they not make that more popular? I don't know. And it's, I don't have all the answers, but clearly it's not working. You had an empty arena basically until the final.
Right.
So things are not working out. Anyway, let's move on to the prospect rankings because this is, as we talk about the rebuild and we talk about the future of the Blackhawks, you saw a big jump in 1 year. This is Corey Pronman of The Athletic ranking every organization's prospects pool, basically. Like, so where do they rank in terms of the other 32 teams? Blackhawks come in at number 13, up from number 23 last year, up 10 spots. Mm-hmm. And that's after trading their number 1 prospect on last year's list, Kirby Dach. Mm-hmm. That is a massive jump.
Yeah, I would say not many teams in the league can have an improvement in their prospect system by getting rid of their top prospect. But I think, the Blackhawks, especially through this last draft, coming in with 0 first-round picks and coming away with 3 once the draft was over, was a significant boost to the prospect system, especially with the trajectory the players that they selected are supposedly going to be on.
The other thing, too, compared to last list, this is players 23 or under 23. So Ian Mitchell was the Hawks' 3rd prospect on last year's list. He's also no longer on the list. Mm-hmm. And they've jumped from 10 spots still without Mitchell and without Dach. So it shows you what people think of the Blackhawks prospect pool. And reading this thing today from Corey Pronman, frankly, kind of got me excited. We'll go through the top 10 here, and we'll kind of, then we'll kind of jump back and reflect on it. Lukas Reichel, number 1. Frank Nazar, number 2. Number 3 is Kevin Korchinski. Number 4, Philip Kershaft. I want to get back to that one for sure. Alex Vlasic, number 5. Ryan Green, number 6. Colton Dach, number 7. Wyatt Kaiser, number 8. Sam Renzel, number 9. And Alec Regula, number 10. There's a bunch more in the pipeline on this list, but the top 10, a lot of those guys we kind of know about already a little bit. We've seen play
a little bit, yeah. I was. It was interesting to me that Reichel was at the top. I think if I were doing something like this, and I'm not a big fan of the let's list them 1 through 25 or whatever. I have a different system that I like to look at that I'll actually be doing later this summer as we get closer to the Tom Curver's Rookie Showcase. So keep an eye on that for allchgo.com. That'll be coming out in a little while. But I was surprised that Reichel was at the top. I would have thought either Nazar or Korchinski would have been the top prospect. That's kind of how I see it. As far as listing them in an order, Kershaft being at number 4, I don't know. I have a few things with Corey's list that I feel is interesting. Reichel at number 1, Kershaft at number 4, and Drew Comezzo down at 14. I thought was a little low.
Yeah, the rankings are a little Mm-hmm. But then again, this is a guy that he's in charge of ranking the entire league. He doesn't see all these guys.
Exactly.
So he's just going based on scouting reports a lot of times. Maybe he sees a little bit of video here. So you can, chalk it up to being not just a Blackhawks prospect analysis.
Yeah. But it's.
But Kershaft at number 4 is like, what? Huh?
It's funny.
I like Philip Kershaft, but I don't.
Well, and you see him ranked that high. It's like, okay, well, he must really believe in Philip Kershaft. And here's Pronman's analysis. Kershaft was a regular player for Chicago this season, scoring 21 points in 67 games. He doesn't do everything. He doesn't have much speed or off-the-puck value, and he isn't the first guy you want coming in on the forecheck. He is highly skilled, though, can make plays, and is able to score from range. I think he'll have a career middle 6 winger, likely closer to a third-line variety. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago with me, Kershaft, because he doesn't do anything really well, he's like the 4A hockey player, where he'll be great in the American Hockey League, but he just doesn't have a spot on a contender because he doesn't do anything well enough. He's not an elite enough scorer. He doesn't have elite speed. He's not a good enough defender or a feisty enough defender. He's not the kind of guy who's going to go play, a Brandon Hagel, Andrew Shaw, get in front of the net and get your nose dirty type of game. He's a periphery player with a good shot. And as soon as the Hawks become competitive, I feel like Philip Kershaft is either going to be in Rockford or another organization because they're not going to have a spot for him. You can't, like we said, he's got to play in your top 6. And as soon as your top 6 gets better with a lot of these other prospects in the system, Kershaft's got no place to play on this team.
Yeah, he's really going to have to get to that top level in one of those aspects of his game to really stand out, because he's a fine player. You can have a Philip Kershaft on your team right now and be fine with it. He can make an impact here or there. But it's consistency with him that I think is his biggest thing. But yeah, if he's supposed to be, an up and coming player with a lot of skill in his shot and his hands and his creativity and his playmaking ability, you're gonna have to see more of it at the NHL level to really say like, oh yeah, like he's a piece of that puzzle that the Blackhawks are trying to put together. But right now it's just like, yeah, he's in the lineup because you kind of have to put him in the lineup because there's no reason for him to be in Rockford at this point, because he's not at that point of his career anymore. But I haven't really seen him grab hold firmly of being like, yes, I'm an NHL roster player, 82 games, sure.
And I think with all these guys, of course, there is room for growth. Like Philip Kershaft is 22 years old.
Right. Yep.
He's not done developing as a player. But usually by now you'll see some signs of like, oh, there's the flash. Like we saw that a handful of times with Kirby Dach. Like, yeah, that's why that guy was picked number 3. He wasn't able to put it together enough or do it frequently enough, but it was there. With Kershaft, I will say this. He is certainly more valuable and more effective when he's given regular shifts and not in and out of the lineup. He's got to be there all the time, in every night. And I think on this team, he will be and should be.
He should be.
So maybe that will help. Right. Just having him in the lineup on a regular basis.
He can't stay in the lineup on this roster. It's time to move on.
And theoretically, he could get some power play time. Maybe.
Why not?
Sure. I mean, of course, there's others that might, like Domi and Athanasiou, but I don't think it's out of the question that Kershaft would get power play time.
I'm still a little confused on what he's basing his rankings on. Like, Lukas Reichel, number 1. Okay, is that because he's the most NHL-ready prospect? Is that why he's number 1? Or is he the best player? Is he got the highest NHL ceiling? If that's the case, he shouldn't be number 1.
Yeah, Nazar would be number 1 on that one, right?
If you're going by
Kaczynski would be ahead of him too.
Yeah, if you're going by potential NHL
maybe
ceiling,
even Rinzel.
Yeah.
Everybody, the scouting, love his potential. Will he ever get there? We don't know. But so I don't understand what makes him. Maybe he should have just said, here are the 10 prospects you need to watch for most, or something. It's confusing when you give it a number and don't really explain what the numbers mean.
So he does kind of project as the list goes on, like where Corey Pronman, I'm talking about, says like where he projects each player to kind of maximize their value in the NHL. With Reichel, he says the toolkit itself doesn't look high-end, but the results consistently are, and Reichel is trending to becoming a top-line winger. And in the little profile there, it says tier top of the lineup player. And he is the only guy on this list that he has projected that high. Nazar, middle of the lineup, he's got. Korchinski, middle of the lineup. Kershaft, middle of the lineup. Vlasic, projected to play NHL games. Like, as it goes on, the only guy on this list that he sees as a potential top liner is Reichel. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It's not totally clear, but look, and I think Pronman is pretty clear with the fact that this is his opinion.
Right.
And like anything, like I don't think like you guys more than I have a good knowledge of prospects around the league. And I think if we tried to do any other team in the league, it wouldn't be as effective as our Hawks list, right? You're just not as close to it. Sure. And Pronman is sort of tasked with doing every team in the league. He's not going to be spot on every time, but, you know.
I'm sure being tasked with that job, I'm sure he's got a huge network of scouts that are giving him firsthand information. So he's not just...
And he's got 32 writers for The Athletic to reach out and say, hey, what do you think about these guys?
Prospects and looking up stats and then watching 5 minutes of YouTube video and saying, that's the guy. He's getting he's getting credible
sourced
information to make very well-educated assessments. He's not just flying by the seat of his pants by any means.
Yeah, and it's him and Scott Wheeler, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, I respect his opinion on prospects a lot. You know, so it just the rankings are a little confusing to me. But overall, like they were 23rd. The Blackhawks as a whole were 23rd last year, which I thought was high.
Fair at least.
I was like, yike. Okay, that's positive. Mm-hmm. And then the jump up 10 spots, I haven't really gone through the whole rankings yet. I'm kind of interested to see, is it more that the Blackhawks improved 10 spots, or did like 3 or 4 teams fall down and they improved only like 6? But still, it's a very good start. And we're not all going to say this is just because of Kyle Davidson's draft class. No, this has a lot to do with the fact that some of the guys from the 2021 draft class took a big jump in the year. Mm-hmm. You know, Ethan Del Mastro, not in the top 10. He's right outside. I think he's 11th on this list.
He's in there.
Nolan Allen, they improved. A guy like Jalen Lipin improved. Took strides. Yeah. So, like, that has a lot to do with that jump, too. Not just the new guys that Kyle Davidson added, but because of the development of the guys that he who shall not be named added the year before and 2 years ago, too, as well. So that you're starting to see some of that come to fruition.
Yeah.
But 4 of the top 10 are Davidson picks from this year.
Right. And I expect them fully to be in the top 10, if not pushing the top 5 this time next year.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have 2, at the very least, 2 first-round picks in this draft, including odds are in the top 3, maybe number 1 overall. Mm-hmm. And then and then you're going to get the progression of Nazar and Korchinski and all these guys drafted this year and all the guys drafted last year. They're going to have another year under their belt. Mm-hmm. They should be pushing top 5 next year. And none of that, and that's something to be excited about. It doesn't mean rebuild is a success.
Sure.
Because these guys still have to
produce.
Get to the NHL and produce.
Yeah.
It just means that, like, hey, it's looking pretty. If these guys get to where they're supposed to go, then we got something here.
To be in the first stages of the rebuild and to have, someone like Corey Pronman, who is tuned into prospects as much as anybody else in the in the hockey world, to have him say that you improve the organization improved 10 spots year over year, that's a good indicator that this first stage and trying to rebuild the prospect system and then build up from there, it's off to a good start.
Absolutely. You would have been very discouraged if, Kyle Davidson didn't get those 3 first-round picks and that second-round pick was their first pick, and then you get these rankings come out and you see that they're still 23rd, or God forbid, they're 24th or 25th.
Worse. Yeah.
And then you're like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's going to be bad, but we're not improving. Well, you've improved 10 spots in one summer is huge.
Yeah.
It doesn't declare victory.
Right.
It doesn't mean order those 2025 Stanley Cup final tickets, but it definitely gets you closer than you were a year ago. So it's definitely encouraging. I agree with Mario. Having Drew Commesso at 14 is
that seems low.
Yeah. I mean, to me, if I have to rank them as like, if I were to rank a top 10 based on my NHL ceiling versus how close, plus how close they are to the NHL, he's got to be top 6.
I would think so.
Like he's
in the system,
prospect.
Yeah.
Like his season this year is going to go a lot to where we see him in the future.
Yeah, I feel like most of the draft analysts and prospect analysts that we've kind of talked to over time have kind of given Commesso a stamp of approval that he should get to the NHL, have a significant impact at the NHL level, and I think if you're looking at that as a goaltender for a Blackhawks team that basically doesn't have a goaltender of the future outside of him or to a lesser extent Arvid Soderblom, the importance for him in the organization is a lot higher than being the number 14 guy.
Yeah.
When you talk about the prospect system, so yeah, I would have him much higher than 14.
Yeah, sorry, Greg. What excited me most about Commesso was what Chris Peters said to us, that him not participating for Team USA might cost them a medal. Now, it's probably not fair to say Umberto cost them a medal, but he wasn't great in goal for Team USA.
Not in that.
And had Drew Commesso been there, maybe things are different.
I know one goal for sure doesn't get allowed in that Czechia game.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be the game-winning goal.
Yeah, so who knows? But when you hear someone with that much authority on a prospect, say something that like that was definitive.
Yeah.
Chris was like, this is a huge loss for Team USA.
And he was right.
Mm-hmm.
He was right, and that really got my attention. And being at development camp every day this year, really focusing on it, talking to Commesso and others after practices, that dude, he's got like a presence about him a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you talk about the eye test, which is probably a little overvalued, but he just looks the part. We talked the same way about Ethan Del Mastro, right? Like you see that guy on the ice and you say, that is an NHL player. You can just see it. And Commesso has that look in goal. Positionally, reaction-wise, all those sort of things. It's clear to me how important he is to the Blackhawks' future. Now, the question is, do we think of him that way because he's the only option, or is he truly that good of a prospect? You know what? Others who evaluate prospects seem to think he's that damn good.
I think when you continuously cycle into Team USA's program as a top goaltending option, whether it's the World Juniors or the non-NHL Olympics or the World Championships, those are more than just our eyes looking at him and saying he's a top prospect. It's the U.S. program saying he's a top option for us. Let's keep giving him these opportunities.
And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of these prospect guys don't want to like tie themselves to goalie prospects because there's such a strange beast where like, hey,
it's a completely different position.
He looks great as a 20-year-old in college, and then you never hear from him.
Mm-hmm.
Like goalies can take a bad turn so easily, and goalies the exact opposite could come out of nowhere and be all of a sudden
Scott Darling.
Yeah, I mean, but
Anthony Niemi.
Yeah, I mean, so goalies are such a weird, fickle position. I can understand that some of these prospect experts don't want to be like, he's their best prospect, and then it fizzle out, and then you got to wear that.
Right.
I get that a little bit. And big thanks to our guy Design Love for the $9.99 super chat. We appreciate that. He says, great subject today. Love this pod. Nice shirt, Greg. You are very very observant fan of ours. We appreciate it. This is the Big League Chew Roosevelt, if you can't see it, and for those listening to audio.
I love that one.
You're tapping into the Little League vibes in the last few days. Sandlot, Big League Chew.
Well, Sandlot was because we were doing movies.
That's true.
And I just felt sticking with the theme here.
I hate to bring it up, but speaking of yesterday's show,
here we go. We're gonna recap drafts that I don't win.
Do we have the results of the draft yet? I'm looking here.
I think the people born before 1990 haven't hit Twitter yet.
I reported it as spam, so I'm not sure what happened.
If you go to at CHGO_Blackhawks and scroll down our feed, you can see the movie draft that we did yesterday on yesterday's show, the sports movie draft. You can vote on between myself, Jay, and Greg on who you believe has the best lineup. 1 hour and 7 minutes left to vote, and go vote is what I will say, and leave it at that.
I love the first comment that poll got was somebody saying, Mario, you have to get your family to stop voting for you because you shouldn't be winning this. But
all's fair.
Everybody's
in sports movie
everybody's
draft
opinion is valid, no matter how wrong they are. They're still valid.
Thank you. Surf and Duck says he voted for me because Mario cheated. Well, I didn't say that. You said that. Sarah, I see you've got the poll on the screen there. Feel free to. That mouse is closest to my name, so if you just want to click it, that'd be fine. I need the most help of anybody. Sarah, how many of these movies have you seen? As our resident youth expert.
Let me look. What did you guys put on it?
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, scroll it up.
Oh,
scroll it up. There it is.
Oh, I did see this. Okay, so I would say out of all three of you, probably the best one is Greg's.
See?
Yeah.
Sandlot is the best pick.
Those are, the Sandlot, I've seen that 100 times, but the Mighty Ducks is also like a great movie.
Yeah.
Teen Wolf is good, Happy Gilmore. I don't know. They're all great choices, but if I had to pick, I'm going with Greg.
See? And this is why I'm huge on TikTok. The kids love me.
That's fine. That's fine.
Fair enough.
I'm still confident.
We'll see, though. Yeah, we still got time.
The Big Lebowski is almost a cheat. It's
Almost.
accurate.
You're just mad that you didn't pick it
No,
first.
100%. You are totally correct.
You're just mad
I
that
am
Wayne's
pissed.
we didn't allow Wayne's World to be a hockey movie.
And then Greg goes, a bowling movie. And I'm like, damn it, Kingpin. And it's a Big Lebowski. Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be like my first movie pick, period. Let alone sports movie. I blew it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I should have worn one of my Big Lebowski shirts yesterday, but I didn't want.
You
to
wanna tip your hand?
I didn't
Didn't
want
wanna
to
give it up.
the idea to one of you two guys.
So I didn't mention
good point.
Teen Wolf during our our conversation
So
segment of the show.
maybe Monday I'll wear one of my Big Lebowski
I was
shirts.
gonna
There
say,
you go.
if you want to get like my perspective from my generation, I would say if I made my own list, it would be The Sandlot, Space Jam, Teen Wolf, Happy Gilmore, and The Mighty Ducks, and
See,
that would be my list.
When I started to see the polls and I saw Mario had the lead, I was like, well, I guess a lot of our Twitter followers, at least, were
Have good
born
taste in
were
sports
born
movies.
after 1990, because putting Mighty Ducks and Space Jam in the same column
That is-
for
yeah,
people
it's
born
hard.
in 1990 or later, that's go-to right there. I get that. I understand
Listen,
that.
I just
So
have
once
good
I
taste
teach
in
all
sports
my
movies.
old ass aunts and uncles how to log on to Twitter, I'm going to take over this poll.
Sarah, what year were you born?
2000. Well, I was going to say the only reason why I'm picking Greg's,
I'm
though,
leaving.
is I'm the youngest. I'm the only girl and the youngest in my family, and so I just grew up with a lot of these old movies because my oldest brother's 31, so he has like all the old school stuff.
Yeah.
All the classics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the classics, the stuff that came out when I was in high
All
school.
the classics.
I was a
guys.
senior in
wasn't
college
born.
when Sarah was born.
I was.
This is
That's
awful.
life.
I hate it.
I was
here.
able to. I turned 21 the year you were born. I was able to drink the year you were born.
I was in 5th grade.
Shut up, Mario.
Anyway, we should
Fourth
get back
grade?
to the prospect list.
2000?
Speaking of
Fourth
Yeah,
grade?
dudes,
let's keep making us feel old, Jay. Let's talk about 18.
Let's
Oh,
keep
my
talking
God.
about 19-year-old hockey.
Let's talk
players.
about guys that weren't
Let's go.
even born when Mighty Ducks came
Yeah.
out.
yeah.
They've never seen Mighty Ducks. It's too old for them.
Oh, it's brutal. So, a guy we talked about a little bit this week, Nicholas Bodine, not on the top 15.
Is he aged out?
He's in the
No, he's in the
honorable mention. Has a
players
chance
that
to
can
play
play.
list.
Also ran.
He's on the participants list.
Here's
He
the
tried
analysis. Bodine's hockey sense is clearly NHL quality. As a small defenseman who lacks mobility, I question whether an NHL coach is ever going to trust him to take a regular shift.
Yikes.
Yeesh.
I wouldn't say he lacks mobility. I would say he's just not.
He can
the most,
skate.
Yeah, like
Yeah, he does own skates.
Yeah.
that's a harsh
I thought so
criticism.
too. I thought so too.
That's telling me like, and I've seen Nicholas Bodine play a lot in person in Rockford. I still think there's a foundation there, and he still has a chance to be an NHL player. He might be at the point where maybe it just takes a fresh start somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is a make or break year.
I think he's had a good foundation since he got to the professional ranks. I just don't think he's built upon it yet. And it's been a few seasons in the AHL now, and I think, yeah, like you said, make or break year. I feel like he's already kind of getting buried.
He's
So
got
I
one
would-
foot out the door.
Yeah, so I would
Yeah.
hope that if this training camp is going to be very important for him to, not necessarily getting a lineup spot with the Blackhawks, but even just with the Ice Hogs.
I
So
would
we'll
hope
see.
that being a healthy scratch for playoff games has given him
For
all,
Ryan Stanton.
yeah.
all the motivation he needs to bust his ass this summer and come into training camp ready to prove it.
Yeah.
If that doesn't, see you,
You
later.
know, well, there's your answer, right? And I wonder how much Anders Sorensen was sort of considering that when he made that decision. Like, look, this kid needs a fire lit under his ass,
Yeah.
and we've got to see if
you're-
this will work.
If you're
If
first
this doesn't work for him, then there is no fire to be lit.
if you're a first round pick in your third AHL season and you're not one of the top 6 defensemen for a playoff game, abort.
You're in
Yeah,
trouble.
that's bad.
You're in trouble.
It's time to pull up because the plane is going down.
Yep.
And it's going to be for the Ice Hogs. It's going to be a crowded defensive group. You're going to have
Yes, it is.
A mixture of maybe Alex Vlasic, Alec Regula, Isaac Phillips, Jakob Galvis, maybe Ian Mitchell, Bodine is in there, and then you got Adam Clendening on an AHL contract.
And he's going to play.
And he's going to play.
Yep.
Not
to mention in a couple years, Korchinski and Renzel and Nolan
these guys that are going to come in,
Kaiser and Kelly, all these.
Wyatt Kaiser's.
It's now or never for him. If he doesn't do it this year, enjoy playing for the Binghamton Senators next year, because that's the writing's on the wall, and we already have hinted that it certainly appears that Kyle Davidson doesn't want anybody that was associated with the previous guy to hold his job. I don't think that's 100%
no
true.
Strong loyalties,
but he does not care. If you were a first round pick by the previous regime, so. He's got to do it this year and early this year. Like, he's got to come in the training camp and make the Blackhawks coaching staff go, well, maybe he's got to make it a hard decision to send it back to Rockford this year.
Yep.
Right.
And with these many young defensive prospects coming in the organization and coming up the lineup within the organization, the Blackhawks have some trade chips.
Yeah,
because not all of these guys are going to turn into NHL players or have room for them.
Rankings, Any of these guys interest you?
Right. So if the Blackhawks can say, hey, former first round pick might just need a change of scenery. What do you give for us? That could be a player like Bodine if he doesn't play himself into regular lineup position.
We just need to get. He who shall not be named another job in the NHL, because that's the exact kind of guy that he always traded for.
Yeah.
That former first-round pick that just hasn't found it yet. That's who he loved.
We'll trade you a former first-round pick. And, there's another guy Pronman takes a shot at skating-wise, but we're way behind in our ad copy. So got to remind everybody that PointsBet Sportsbook is counting down the days until the football season with a new offer every day until the season kicks off. So from now until September 8th, PointsBet Power Hour will unlock a new daily offer from noon to 1 p.m. Central. That's every day until the season kicks off. Sign up for PointsBet now using code CHGO to also get risk-free bets up to $2,000. Don't miss out on your chance to get daily access to free bets, boosted odds, and so much more now through September 8th. But that's not it. If you make a $51 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our great web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO Locker. Download that PointsBet app today and use the code CHGO to take advantage of this limited-time offer. Don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet, and if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services. And remember, that sale is ongoing at chgolocker.com. 25% off all of the dope merch in the shop. So if you've already downloaded the PointsBet app, we thank you. If you're looking to stock up on the CHGO merch, go to chgolocker.com and save 25%.
And to all our great CHGO listeners out there, since you've already got the best coverage of your favorite Chicago teams, why don't you go out and get fitted in the best sports gear around? That's where you rely on our buddies over at FOCO, because they got you covered from the front room all the way to the United Center, north or south side. They've got hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. The fall sports are just around the corner. It's time to load up. You want to get decked out like your favorite Chicago Blackhawks prospect is these days? Go look over at our buddies at FOCO, the leader in sports merch and collectibles. Looking for the perfect gift for your football fan, family member, friend, your big-time hockey buddy, basketball, baseball. They got it all covered with hoodies that can fight the Lake Michigan breeze. Can we please get some of that Lake Michigan breeze in this damn office? Oof. I can't wait for fall weather in the office. So check out our buddies at FOCO. That's FOCO.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube, after you smash that like button, that thumbs up, hit it. Hit it twice just to be sure it registered. Scroll down just below that. You'll see a link in the description for FOCO.com. And as a special bonus, our gift to you, use the promo code CHGO at checkout and you receive 10% off all non-presale items.
We're throwing the deals at you. 25% off. 10% off.
Here's the deal.
All the percents off.
All the percents off.
So many percentages.
Not actually Asterisk, not all the percents off. All right, here's number 11 on Corey Pronman's list here. Skating, poor. Puck skills, below NHL average. Hockey sense, NHL average. Compete above NHL average. This is defenseman Ethan Del Mastro.
Skating poor?
Poor.
Sure.
I'm guessing
he's not the most fleet of foot, but like
I'm
poor?
guessing this was written before the World Junior Championship.
I think there's a difference between being a bad skater and being slow.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could still have really good footwork and not be fast.
Yes.
Bad skaters are obvious. You know who was one of the worst skaters I ever seen in my life? Victor Edsel. Remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
The first time I saw him in Rockford, I was like,
it's
what?
like his legs were backwards.
It was like, oh, my God. Like, what is going on? I even had one of the Rockford Ice Hogs coaching staff tell me off the record that he was, in fact, the worst skater he'd ever seen in his life.
Wow.
So when I first saw him play for the first time, I was like, what are we even doing here? Why did we trade for this guy?
But
that's
hey,
a poor skater.
You remember that overtime winner against the Wolves, though? Hey. It was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But yes,
that
he was
one moment in the AHL.
That's a bad skater.
It was worth it.
Not being a fast skater is different.
Right.
You can still have good footwork, and for the style of defense he plays, he doesn't necessarily have to be fast.
I think Seabrook is a good example, right?
He just has to be and for a stay-at-home type defenseman like Del Mastro is, as long as he knows where to be, he doesn't need to be fast.
Right.
It's like Ryan Sandberg playing second base. Everybody used to criticize Ryan Sandberg never dove for a ball. He never got dirty. You know why? Because he didn't have to.
Right.
He was always in the right spot. So as long as Del Mastro's in the right spots defensively, he doesn't need to be a great skater.
Yeah.
He's not a transitional. He's not a Kevin Korchinski. He's not an Adam Boquist, that type of defenseman. He is more along the Brent Seabrook, Connor Murphy, Calvin DeHaan type of defenseman where he's going to do the dirty work and then get the puck over to his skating partner to get it out of the zone.
When we saw Seabrook's development, the thing that improved the most with him was his skating, and he didn't get faster, but he became a more efficient skater and knew how to get from A to B in a less janky way, I guess is kind of the way to put it. And you're not getting beat wide. You're not getting blown by one of the speedsters in the league. You learn how to use this tools you have. Brent Seabrook's got huge tree trunk legs and a giant bubble ass because he's a big, strong skater. And that was, to me, when you saw him go from like Bambi on ice, to Brent Seabrook, the Brent Seabrook we know and love, that to me was the biggest adjustment, was learning how to skate properly at the NHL level. And look, there's plenty of time. Ethan Del Mastro was 19 years old, but at 19 years old, he was deemed one of the 6 best defensemen that the nation of Canada has at that age level.
Right.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So I think there is some room for growth and development in the skating game, and obviously as these guys get to professional programs, they're going to get more dedicated training and skating coaches and all those sort of things, and those things will hopefully improve for Del Mastro because, again, the guy we saw in development camp looked like a different level of player than a lot of the guys out there.
Not every defenseman needs to be Cale Makar.
Right. It'd be nice, though.
It'd be nice. It'd be great. I'd love to have 6 of them, but not every defenseman's going to skate like that. Right, yeah, of course.
One of the things about skating, I had a few conversations with, he's now a pro scout, Jose Carbonneau. He was a former first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens. I got to talk to him covering AHL games. He covered a lot. When I told him I was scouting in the North American League, we started talking shop. And he always talked about skating. He says, when you scout a player, the first things you need to look at is their feet. Then work your way up. Because if the feet are bad, everything else is probably going to be along that line. But he said, don't rate a guy on his top speed per se. Rate a guy on how long and how much energy it takes to get him to top speed. Because if it takes him 8 strides and he's out of gas, but he's at top speed, he's useless. If it takes a guy 4 strides and he's at his top speed, even though it's not the fastest guy on there, but he's still got the energy to now play, that's more important than being super fast. How many strides does it take you to get to top speed, and how much energy are you using is more being more efficient at getting the top speed is more important than actually being the fastest guy in your team.
Well, I mean, because how often are you on a sheet of ice skating at top speed. It's very rare.
Usually it's to cover your ass because you messed up.
Yeah, you're chasing
Shit,
someone.
I got to get back.
Right, yeah, right.
And if it takes you 8 strides to get to top speed, the puck's already in your net.
Right.
So
that's a great point.
Those are things I take into effect when I watch defensemen, especially stay-at-home defensemen.
Yeah.
They don't need to be great skaters. They just need to know where to be and how to get there as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, efficiency in physical skills is a big thing for all athletes, especially with hockey, though. Definitely.
Yeah. Another name on here before we get to some of the other sidebar topics we have. Coming up number 15 on the list of 15 is Landslagger.
That's a little low.
He says Slaggert is useful, but somewhat boring as a player. Fine. I'll take boring. Just don't hurt the team.
Yeah.
He's not that big and doesn't have NHL speed or puck handling displays. He generates value through his work ethic and by having good enough hockey sense to make plays. Slaggert is great in front of the net. Batting for, this should say battling, but it says batting for space effectively and winning a ton of battles in the tough areas of the ice. He can kill penalties and chip in secondary offense. The talent may not be good enough to be a regular NHLer, but I can see him get some games.
Again, I think that was written before the World Juniors.
Yeah, to me, Slaggert looks like a player. He looks like a guy you could put on the fourth line of a contending team, and he's going to be super useful.
There's a lot of NHL players now, past, and in the future that have made careers out of just working harder than other people. And I think, yeah, Slaggert doesn't have the flashiest skill set, but he has a lot of work ethic in his game. He's got a lot of, hard nose, going to go into corners, going to go to the front of the net and be difficult to play against. He has a lot of that in his game, and that can get guys to the NHL and give them productive careers over guys that don't play that way, but they have great hands. Well, if you can't get anywhere to have those hands be useful, it doesn't do anything for you.
Case in point, I would take Landslagger right now than any day of the week over even when he was at his peak prospect ranking, Dylan Secura.
Sure. Yeah.
Slaggert is the exact opposite of Secura, as in Slaggert will put Dylan Secura, his first year in Rockford was so frustrating because it was like the second he got anywhere close to the faceoff dot, it was like an electric fence went up and he couldn't get any closer. He wanted to play perimeter the whole time and it was so frustrating. Slaggert is a guy that says, screw it, I'm going right to the net.
Like he's only going there.
Right, because that's where he knows his role. Mm-hmm. He knows his capabilities. He knows what his talent is. And he says, well, if I'm going to be an NHL player, I got to get dirty. And he's accepted that. Much like Mackenzie Entwistle, we talked about, he completely changed the type of player he was, where it's like Slaggert, unlike Entwistle, identified that early enough in his career, where Entwistle was relied more on as being an offensive producer, skilled guy in juniors, and then when he got to the pros was told, you're not good enough to do that here, where Slaggert already identified, hey, if I want to be a pro, I gotta be the grinder.
I think it was Chris in the chat brought up the name of Michael Frolik. When we were talking about Philip Kershaft, and I think that that's Frolik is a guy, like you're saying, had to adjust his game too and learn that he's got to be a checker, he's got to be a penalty killer, he's got to get in front of the net, he's got to score dirty goals. When you look at the size of Frolik versus Kershaft, pretty similar in body, similar in skill set. Frolik had a little more offensive game than he ever really kind of produced because his role changed. Yeah, right. He became a very useful third liner, top 6 in a pinch kind of guy. And I think Kershaft should start watching some Michael Frolik tapes to learn how to play. And I think Slaggert probably doesn't have the offense that Frolik has, but it is, you're talking about it, like it's easier to go to take an already gritty, willing to compete player like Slaggert and throw him into the NHL and have that translate than it is to have a Secura type or a Kershaft type learn that game in the league. So I think when you look at someone who on this list who's probably closer to the NHL, I would think Slaggert's a guy who they might look at next season and say, he's got a shot. as they look at their bottom 6. Maybe 2 years, maybe not. I'm not saying this upcoming season.
Yeah,
following
season after the season. I think we're in the point where we can say next season means 23-24.
Yeah, right.
I could see Slaggert getting a game or two after the college season is over, and then maybe going to Rockford for the playoff push. Listen, if Andrew Shaw can score 20 goals in the NHL, there's no reason why Landon Slaggert can't score 15.
Could get close
Shin
to
pads.
it, yeah.
Just get to the net. Come on. Artem Anisimov, his entire Blackhawks career was get to the net and let Patrick Kane shot hit him in the ass and score a power play goal.
There you go.
That's how he got paid. That's what he was paid to do.
Yeah.
It's not the most beautiful thing in the world. It's not going to get you the Hart Trophy, but it's going to get you a really long NHL career with a lot of paychecks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Slaggert's going to play a very prominent role with Notre Dame this year. They're going to have a really good program this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he might have the third letter in the alphabet on his jersey this year.
C.
There you go. For our children learning their alphabet, that is the letter C.
It's for cookie.
C is for cookie, of course.
Cookie is for me.
But he'll play a prominent role on that team. I would be interested to see if they do that at the end of the year, whenever Notre Dame's season ends, giving him that little tryout at the end of the season with the games. AHL, see what happens. He may also be a player that plays all 4 years before coming to the pro ranks. Who knows? But talking to him after prospect camp earlier this summer. It's just easy to root for him. He's got a game, plays the way that Corey Pronman feels is boring. I like watching him play.
Boring is not necessarily bad. If your entire team is boring, okay, that's a problem.
Right.
But your bottom 6 is supposed to be boring.
Yep.
You don't need flash in that.
Slaggert has
area.
a lot of, and it's not just the facial hair. Slaggert has a lot of Ryan Hartman in him. That I see the same type of player.
Yeah.
Maybe not as gritty or
not as punchy, I don't think.
He's not going to do as many stupid things to put your team behind in a bad situation, but just the style of offensive play. I see Ryan Hartman and Slaggert. And just
he's a guy that you can root for sure.
Yeah, a final thought on the Kershaft. I think his biggest downfall is that he hasn't had that normal role. So hopefully this year, now that with a new head coach that knows he's got to build to the future, they can find out what that role is for Kershaft, and he can embrace it. We say, hey, he's got to embrace a different role to be here. Nobody's told him what that role was yet, because one day he is bottom 6 penalty killer. Next day he's next to Jonathan Taves. Mm-hmm. So the team never finalized what that role is. They never told him you got to do this role to be here. Yeah. Hopefully this year, early, like in training camp, they define that role and say, "Go! This is what we need you to do. You got 82 games to do it.
Yep,
and let's see what you can do.
Earn that next deal."
He had that in Rockford when he was starting out, and I think that's where a lot of the flash of like, "Hey, this guy looks like he can get to the NHL if he does this into the next level." That's where a lot of that came from. But then he got to the next level, and it's been up and down the lineup. Yeah. So getting some consistency. He might have been a guy that benefited from maybe a whole nother full season in Rockford. Maybe. Yeah.
Or at least another half a season.
Yeah.
Like, if they weren't going to play him in Chicago regularly last year, 25 games in a row in Rockford wouldn't have been the worst thing for him. But hindsight.
Yeah. Last night, we got to watch Pat Foley call the Cubs game on both TV and radio. It was just good to hear his voice again. Like, just milling around the house, like in the kitchen, doing dishes and stuff, just to hear Pat in the background. Just telling stories, and it was almost good that the Cubs are getting blown out, so he didn't have to focus on the play-by-play as much, because
story time.
He was just asking Jim to say stuff like, "You ever hit anybody on purpose?" He was like Chris Farleying, you ever hit a guy on purpose? Like, and they were just having a lot of conversations like that. He did do the unfortunate Harry Carey impression for the 7th inning stretch, and we've got a photo up of that.
I was seeing people online saying it was at least better than Ryan Dempster's.
Oh, Ryan Dempster is doing a Will Ferrell impersonation.
He's impersonating Will Ferrell, impersonating Harry Carey.
Yes. Yeah. Pat is doing a Harry impression. He was also on the radio with Coomer. So I remembered this. In 2000, Pat called a Cubs game in Minnesota that Ron Coomer was playing for the Cubs in. And he was recalling that game I'm sure he went back and did research, but like photographically.
Yeah.
And Coomer was like, oh, yeah, like I remember that. That was cool. It was just great to hear Pat again. And, we love Chris Vosters, and we always will. He's a friend of the program, of course. But it's going to be weird without Pat. It's going to be.
Yeah.
That is
takes some getting used to.
The one sports permanent of my life has been Pat Foley. Every other team that I follow has had a change in a broadcast booth. Pat Foley is of course, I had a couple years without him, but I was at all those games then, so it didn't matter as much. But,
right.
Man, a year without Pat, from now on without Pat, it's going to be tough. So hopefully they're on good terms. I was happy to see the Hawks social media was like there,
pushing
taking pictures, congratulating him, all that stuff. So, and I didn't catch anything that was like a shot at the Hawks at all from Pat. So hopefully they're on good terms, and maybe we'll have him call a game or two this year.
I wouldn't be shocked if we see Pat at almost every home game, one way or the other, hanging out, enjoying it, watching the game.
Ambassador.
Being Pat Foley.
Yeah.
Shaking hands.
Getting
beers from random fans. Now is the time of his life he get to enjoy being Pat Foley.
Yeah.
He put in the work, and maybe he's realizing that. I think he was a little hurt and maybe a little bitter at the way things went down. And now that he's got a time to step back, he's kind of been like, you know what? I've put in the work. It's time to enjoy being Pat Foley and being a celebrity in this town.
Well, he still can.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if he is in that press box almost every game, enjoying himself and just being Pat Foley and being the mayor of the United Center.
Yeah, I'm all for that. The other little bit of news for you gamers out there, NHL 23 has announced their cover athletes. Ducks forward Trevor Zegras and Team Canada defense forward Sarah Nurse
awesome choice.
Are splitting the cover this year. A lot of people upset that Trevor Zegras is not one of the 5 best players in the league, so he doesn't deserve it. He is marketable.
Yes.
He has a personality. He is fun.
Please.
He is a video game on ice.
He is somebody that grew up playing the NHL game.
Yes.
Like, sorry, how many times you need Austin? It's a cover video game. Get over it. B, how many times you need Austin Matthews and his zero personality on, like, the cover.
Personality absolutely matters, and sure, Zegras didn't win Rookie of the Year. That's fine. Was he the most talked about, one of the most talked about hockey players this past season?
Yes.
Yeah. And you know how many non-hockey fans saw what he did and said, hey, maybe I'll check out a little bit more hockey. Some people did. And what does the NHL video game try to do? They know they're going to get their $60+ from diehards like the three of us and play the game. They know that. They don't need to. Well, they do need to improve the game to sell it to people like us, but they don't need. They need to get non-hockey video game fans to be interested in the game, and to have someone like Trevor Zegras, who was able to transcend just the hockey world of personality and stardom with what he was doing this past season. Having him on the cover is a way to get those non-hockey fans in. And in that same vein, you get Sarah Nurse on the cover. You get the women's national teams involved in the game. It's really another cool way to extend out to a broader market. There are women and girl gamers who play the NHL game who now have the opportunity to play with the best female players in the world. Yep. That's awesome. And like people like us, I'll play with Team USA and play with Kendall Coyne, and that's pretty sick. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Shout out also, Women's World Championships start tomorrow. Like, no issues whatsoever having the dual cover and having Sarah Nurse on the cover.
There's nothing wrong with a little girl that plays video games going into a store and seeing someone that looks like her on a sports video game and now wanting to buy the game. That is freaking awesome. We need more of that. And if you're a 40-year-old dude that's pissed off about it, suck it. Get a life. Like, get over yourself. Hockey is a sport that should be enjoyed for everybody. Sorry that girls are invading your gamer room. They're not really, because I don't think any of them are going down there, but like
it smells.
Yeah. So I think it's cool. And how many kids are going to try and score a Michigan goal while playing with Trevor Zegras?
The Zegras goal is now in the game.
So that's really cool. That's taking
spend an entire year trying to do that on the sticks.
That's taking a marketable thing and rolling with it instead of having old guys like John Tortorella yell about it on TV. Make some money off of it.
Yeah. I was playing Halo yesterday, and every player on the other team at least had a gamer tag that was like gamer girl or something like
really?
female. And I don't think I'd ever seen that before. I'm like, wow, I'm getting my ass kicked by a group of women, and it's fantastic.
Do you follow the Big Bang Theory schedule? Isn't Tuesday Halo night on Big Bang Theory?
I don't know.
I think so. Know. Yeah.
You go
good
paintballing on Saturdays.
I think that's fantastic stuff by EA Sports. And if you're not buying a video game because of who's on the cover,
you're a weenie.
Yeah, weenie.
Pardon my French.
Coming from someone who has played video games their whole life with both my brothers, I very much appreciate kind of the esports world when they incorporate women. And there's a lot of girls play video games.
Yeah,
More than you think.
My sister to this day still plays video games all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's older than me.
Yeah, I have friends that live in Colorado or Seattle, and the only way we are still friends is because we play games online. And that's just, No, I love it. I think it's great.
For a lot of gamers like me, it's the only way we'll ever meet women.
Could be.
Or you get catfished.
That too. Ooh. Oh, speaking of that.
You finished the Manti Te'o documentary?
Boy, just like Stranger Things, what a disappointing and unsettling finish.
I told you.
It's like, what? Yeah. That's it?
And
it's over.
Credits. It's a very... It is an ending... It's a weird ending, but it's more of an editing thing for me than it is an actual story thing.
Yeah, because the story ends with a black screen, and it's like a trailer for the series.
Right, but it's not
Anyway, watch it. It's worth watching. And Casey Sandahar, our fantastic social media manager, had the viral tweet of all time the other day about this.
I saw that.
And I'm trying to pull it up quickly. Sorry. I know we're late, but who cares? You're getting free content. Who cares?
Talking about the
Manti
Te'o
well, he looks for it. You should
documentary.
Tell us about what other things we need. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Some things that you need. One of them is Owen, spelled OWYN, standing for Only What You Need. It's a 100% plant-based protein shake that gives you nutrition that works just as hard as you do. All of Owen's products are free of artificial ingredients. They don't have any gluten or dairy. They're allergen-friendly and easily digestible. Might have heard about Owen from Bears quarterback Justin Fields. He follows a plant-based diet, and he uses Owen. And Owen and CHGO are partnering up to give you an awesome offer. You can get 20% off of your first purchase when you go to liveowen.com and use the promo code CHGO20. So be like Justin Fields. Dominate the NFL competition. Try yourself some Owen, OWYN, only what you need.
All right, so before we wrap up, if you don't know about this, it is Untold? That's the name
Untold,
of the show, right?
is the Netflix series.
It's on Netflix, a 2-part series on the Manti Te'o catfishing scandal. Here's Casey's tweet. 4,883 retweets, 33.1 thousand likes. Give Casey a raise!
That's a lot.
Is that what the kids call ratio?
Things I learned from the Manti Te'o documentary. The media owes him an apology.
Yep.
We as a society owe him an apology.
Yep.
The NFL owes him an apology. He has every reason to be bitter and pissed off still, yet he forgives everyone, including Renaya, for this. That is true. And the whole reason the whole catfishing thing started is Renaya, as Lene Kakua, reached out to him for help, and he was trying to help a stranger. That is how the entire thing happened.
Yeah.
So I know I'm a Notre Dame homer. I will admit that fully. But anyone who watches this documentary and sees what Manti Te'o was put through and has been through since, it's brutal. And hopefully this does a little bit to help him move on and start the next phase of his career. Maybe as a coach, maybe as an analyst or something. Because he said it himself. He's basically has the guy who got catfished written on his forehead, and he did nothing wrong but try to help people.
That's his legacy, unfortunately. When that name comes up, that's what you're going to think of.
And
fake dead girlfriend.
Yeah, and when he was at Notre Dame, I said he was the most dominant defensive college football player I had ever seen. The way he played.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
He was a fantastic player. He was going to be a first-round pick.
Yep.
Going into that senior season that he ended up having where all this information then came out after it. But yeah, I mean, he was just a dominant player, and you just see the effect that what happened to him had on him mentally.
He talked about it,
and he talks about needing to talk to someone after basically his whole confidence was just shot from this catfishing incident, and it's just crazy.
Anyway,
it's a crazy
highly
story.
recommended.
Follow Casey on Twitter.
Yeah, of
If
course.
you don't already. She's awesome.
At Casey Standahar, just like it sounds. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow, 1:30. Remember, AJ Hayfley from DNVR will preview the Avalanche, and who knows what content will fall in our laps between now and then.
Give
Can't
it
wait.
24 hours.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed on your favorite podcast apps. And don't forget that CHGO Locker Summer Sale, 25% off. Now go do it. For Mario and Greg, I'm Jay. This has been the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.